said, we didn't know how we were going to come up with the last amount of money,
Yeah.
but we had been on the phone with our pastor, and our pastor's a very kind guy. He was very encouraging about us buying our home, so he had just been checking in on us, like, hey, how are things going? And we're like, everything's good.
Yeah. He actually asked me, like, how's everything going? I told him exactly what it was. We needed X amount of dollars or whatever. So I asked him, hey, if you ever come across any income opportunities, we're willing to work for it, take on side projects or something
do
like
anything.
that. Yeah, we were willing to do not anything. But
no, but I remember thinking, like, I was like sitting right there next to you, like, just tell him if he knows anybody, because he's really connected. He may know somebody, they need a house painted, like, we'll figure out how to paint a house. Like, but it was actually funny because since the beginning of 2016, we had actually been working at our church, and we were just volunteers. We never wanted any money at all. Like, we still do it. Like, what we do at our church for free. It's a volunteer thing that we do on a weekly basis. But here's another, like, just, I think, important part of our story, because you just never know where your blessings are going to come from, because basically how the pastor took it, when we told him we were looking for income opportunities, he looked like, you guys have been working for us for free for a whole year. So let's see if there's anything we as a church can do to help bless you. And I guess that's when he told you something that...
Yeah, he said he was going to look out for us, and then, you know, we kind of come into church, and he's like, our pastor, he does not like, you know, extra offerings.
Yeah.
He doesn't like pastors begging the church for money,
Ever.
making you feel guilty for, you know, not paying your tithes and all this other stuff. So this was like the first time he actually did it, and he asked for like a special offering. He didn't announce who it was. He just said somebody in the church, you know, needs a little help or something like that. And he took like an extra offering that was, you know, dedicated to us, and he gave us the money, and that covered the extra money that we actually needed. So that was crazy.
No, shout out to y'all at church, everybody who did offer and volunteer, or, you know, donated to that, because we needed it. Yeah, so basically that came through, y'all, and like, we had exactly enough money to close on the house right in time. Everything worked out, and January 13th we closed. So when we tell you, we conceived this idea of wanting to for real buy a home January 1st over giggles and games with our friends, and a year later we got the keys to our new house. It's just like so surreal how these things happen. So anyway,
well, one thing that I learned from that whole situation is, you know, set your sights on something and you focus on something, even though you might not understand how this is going to happen. Once you're focused, everything starts aligning itself for you.
When you know exactly what you want,
Right.
Exactly. And it's not that it was easy, because
easy, but-
like, living with our friends, they're wonderful people, but when you live with anybody, you have differences of opinions. Like, you know, you may want your space, they may want their space. So we felt like we were like crowding our friends' space, even though they were very generous. It's like, we knew that after a while they were going to want us to be gone so they could continue with their lives. As you know, after a while we would finally want to get in our own place. So that dynamic alone was just challenging.
But that's just a sacrifice.
But that's just a sacrifice
That's just
we
our
make.
case. It could be something else for somebody else. It's just a sacrifice that you have to make. You might have to pass up on the new J's. You might have to actually sell your J's. You might actually have
We
to.
would bring Jay's up in this conversation.
Yeah, man. You might actually, it could be anything, a car, you know.
Yeah.
You might actually have to sell your car and actually drive a Honda instead of a Benz or something like that. Like, it just sacrifices that you gotta make, and that was just a sacrifice that we were willing to make during that time.
Right. And another thing I want to really drive the point home on is just having faith. It's just like, even though I struggled with mine, and we all do, it's like one thing that we made sure to do throughout this whole process is pray. Like, we prayed over every big decision that came up. Like, God, if this house is for us, or God, you know that you showed us this house and this is what we really, really want, so make a way. And if you don't want us to have it, slam the door in our faces so that we don't even waste any time pursuing it. And that was a big thing. Is like, I feel like prayer is so important, because by us praying the way that we did and God leaving those doors open, it gave us the indication that this was for us. So we just had to have faith. So my greatest recommendation this whole thing is like, be on top of your stuff and believe in yourself, and believe that God can, because he can. He always does. And that leads us to our phases. Like, we just wanted to pretty much like go over like the 3 phases to buying a home. If that's all you came to this video for, we just wanted to like go run over this stuff just one more time.
Key things that we learned that you guys could probably implement on your journey of buying a house, because we had to learn the hard way. If somebody would have told us this, we would have actually, you know, implemented it. So
Right. So first phase is the prep phase. So preparing yourself. So even though we bought our home in a year, it's like we had low-key already been sort of prepared without realizing, but just in case you don't even know where to start, give yourself a 2-year window. I believe anybody can buy a home in 2 years if you prepare properly. And so the first thing is credit. Getting your credit together.
Yeah, and when we say get your credit together, that doesn't mean, oh, go pay off all your school loans or pay off all your credit card debts or anything like that. You know, basically where you want to be is you want to try to get your credit score to 640.
640, 650.
Yeah, that's
and
like
if it can be higher than that, even better.
Right. So if you do have debt, like we said, this is going to be a 2-year process. What I've learned is it's always better to offset your debt with actual credit. So if you actually have a $2,000 credit or a $2,000 debt, you can try to get a $2,000 credit card to offset it. So that way you can keep your $2,000 on hand. Don't go spending any money on the credit card. Wait to pay off your debt until you actually sit down with your lender.
Right,
because he's going to tell you, oh, you should pay this off. You don't have to pay that off. You should pay that off, or whatever the case is. So
because there's always going to be that debt to income ratio that they're calculating when you sit down. They want to see how much, because you may have a lot of debt, but your income may be so high that it doesn't matter.
Right.
Or depending on what your debt to income ratio is, your cash in hand may matter more than that. You don't know what your situation is going to be. So as long as your credits, you don't have anything that's delinquent, because no matter what, you got to take care of delinquencies. So as long as you have anything sitting on there that's delinquent, and as long as your credit score is at like a 640, 650, you should be okay to at least get the process started. The second thing I'll say is filing your taxes. So there's 2 parts to this that I want to hone in on, and that is I am self-employed, and so I make the choice whether or not I want to report income. And some self-employed people don't feel like they make enough money to report income. Although I know we all should, we all don't, and let's just keep it real. So if you are self-employed and you want to buy a home by yourself or jointly, then you do need to report taxes, because you need to have at least 2 years of taxes filed in order for them to consider your income. You could be making $100,000 a year cash, and it doesn't matter if you can't show it on record. And yes, you probably can be in a situation where you can file back taxes for 2 years, but that just makes situations complicated. So if you can start now for the next 2 years, then you'll be in a good situation.
Don't get discouraged and be like, oh man, my credit sucks. I can never get to 640, so it's just not gonna happen. Like, don't do that, because I know a lot of people that are doing that currently, and it just kind of like discourages them from even starting the process. Like, sit down with a lender. That doesn't cost you any money at all. He can direct you correctly how to get your credit up to 640.
Or leave a comment below, and we can tell you what we did to grow our credit and what we still do to this day.
Yeah, it's not hard.
It's not rocket science. It just takes discipline, honestly. The other thing is write-offs. So if you are self-employed, a lot of times what we do is we go file taxes. Like, for instance, he has a regular 9-to-5 job, but he also, has a 1099. He makes income on the side, and so that income, you're able to write things off. And so what happens is, say for instance, you're making an extra $20,000 a year working for yourself, and you decide, well, I'm a business owner, I'm gonna write everything off on my taxes so that I don't have to pay taxes on that $20,000. Well, what happens is, if you write $25,000 worth of expenses off, what it looks like when they're qualifying you for a house is that you actually lost $5,000 that year. It doesn't really help you. So for the next couple years, while you're preparing to buy a house, just pay your taxes. Don't go crazy with the write-offs, because you don't want to make it look like you're losing money by working for yourself. So the third point that I'll say is saving. So know your goal. Have an idea in mind, because if you have an idea, like, you don't know what kind of house you're going to end up buying, but like we knew we probably would need to save at least $10,000. Have we thought about this a year in advance? We probably would already had that money in the bank, and everything else would have just been a bonus, and it wouldn't have been so stressful. So know what your goal is, and just say no. When things come up, when the next party comes up, the new Jay's job, like he said, whatever it is, just say no for 2 years or 1 year, however long your time is. Say no to as many things as you possibly can. One of my best friends was getting married, and I was in her bridal party. Now, I couldn't get out of that, but she wanted to go to Vegas for her bachelorette, and I was like, Vegas is going to cost me at least $500 or more. So I had to say no, and it hurt my heart that I had to say no, but she understood. And sometimes those things are going to come up. That's what I'd strongly recommend when you're in the prep phase of buying a home. So then the second phase is finding a home. And the first thing that we'll discuss is location. Location is everything in real estate. Location determines the price. So that 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house you would have bought in Beverly Hills is going to cost a whole lot more money than the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Riverside or Banning. Okay, so keeping that in mind. And another thing about location is it's going to determine the additional property taxes that are on your home. So if you've heard of things like HOA fees, if you haven't, go look those up. Melrose taxes and a ton of other things. For instance, our home, if we didn't have any additional taxes added to our home, we would only be paying like $1,000 a month right now. But we got to pay like $1,500 a month because like $400 of that is property taxes, simply because we live in a newer development and we all as a community have to pay for this neighborhood to look the way that it looks, so on and so forth. Look these things up if you don't know anything about them, but location is everything. Finding a home process, be optimistic. You don't know what God has for you. You don't know what's out there that matches exactly what you want. Had we lost faith in the beginning, had we never listened to our friend and went to go just look around the neighborhood, had I never went to go knock on that nice lady's door because I thought, oh, I'd be disturbing her, had we not kept trying to get our offer accepted despite the fact that they denied us, we wouldn't be in the home that we live in right now. But we chose to be optimistic throughout the whole process, and I think that always works.
So the last portion of this is when you're actually ready to submit your offer. We were new, we didn't understand these things. You know, now that we have gone through the process, this is just something that I want to share with people. It might actually help you out. So, you know, pay attention to how long that house has been listed. If the house has been listed for, I would say anywhere from like a week to 3 weeks, go ahead and just give them full list price. Or if you really, really want this house, you know, my recommendation is to offer $6,000 more than the listing price, because most people just go in, if a house is $195, they say, hey, I really want the house, I'll offer $5,000 extra. Usually, I don't know what it is, maybe it's something with the psyche, they just say I'm going to offer $5,000 extra. You can actually beat that person by $1,000 by offering $6,000, because most people aren't going to say, hey, let me offer $6,000 extra. They're going to say, let me offer $5,000. So that's if you really, really want the house. If you don't, you know, if you're open, then just give them listing price at least. Don't try to negotiate for a lower profit
or closing costs.
Yeah, or nothing like that, man. Just
unless you don't mind losing the house if you end up.
Yeah, because that's probably the chances this is going to happen. You're going to lose the house. But if you notice that the house has been listed for, let's just say 90 days, or let's just say maybe like 100 days or something like that, that's when the ball is in your court, because they can't sell this house. Obviously, it's been sitting on the market for about 3-4 months. So that's when you could go in a little bit under, man. Don't lowball them though. Don't say, oh, this house is $195. I'm just gonna give you $170. Like, it doesn't work that way. Maybe you could do maybe $185 or something like that, you know, or maybe just check the comps in the area, see what the competition is selling for, or whatever the case is. So, you know, be aware, be mindful of, you know, the situation that you are in before you submit that offer.
Yeah, and so that pretty much sums up our 3 greatest recommendations for finding a home. And then once you actually get an offer accepted and you enter into escrow, our first tip is be ready to go all in. People have been telling us this for like months before we bought our home, so we were prepared. And they told us it's gonna be stressful, they're gonna ask a lot, they're gonna be all up in your business. Don't get upset. I know people that go through escrow and it's just like, they're crazy all over the place. They're so mad. People make mistakes along the way. Like, somebody may be processing your paperwork and make a mistake. We're human. Don't get upset and let that carry into the energy that you're bringing into buying this home, because things need to happen very quickly, and that's not doing anybody any good. So I'd be ready to just go all in and do whatever they ask to help the process run smoothly. Another thing I wanted to recommend you guys is on the inspection. So this is just like a real like just tip, specific tip. When you come into the house and you do the inspection, there are a lot of things to look for, the obvious things, and then you're gonna have a professional that's walking through checking things. So a couple things that we missed that we didn't think to look for were plugging things into every single outlet and making sure that the electrical was right. Now, they're supposed to check that, but not all of them do. Another thing is, when we came to view the house, every time we viewed it, it smelled fine. We knew that they had pets, but their pets were in the backyard, so we didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until we moved into the house that we smelled pet urine in the carpet. Had we unplugged the plugins, or maybe asked them to do so before we got here, we probably would have smelled that and we would have known, and maybe we could have included that in like the negotiations for the price, because we were gonna have to replace all the carpet. So think about every little possible thing that could possibly happen to a house when you live in it, and look for those things during the inspection, because all that is going to play into what you end up closing at.
But don't be too picky, like, because ultimately you want the house. So
Yeah.
don't turn the buyer off like, oh, you know, this doorknob doesn't work, or, you know, something like minor, you know. Do it for major things.
Right, yeah, but I'm just saying, take pictures just in case.
Oh, God.
The last tip I'll say is save some cash, okay? Now, you
Save some extra cash.
save some extra cash, okay? God is so good, y'all, because y'all know we were barely getting by with being able to afford to move to our house. So I do not know how we had extra cash on hand once we closed, but I think his check came through and
Well, we had, you know, escrow. We had an extension in escrow, so I ended up getting an extra check.
right. God is good. That extension that seemed like it was bad was perfect, because we needed that extra money, y'all, because when you first buy a house, even if you bring some furniture from your last place, you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know, like, you got to change the locks. You know, you want to get a security system because now you own a home. Or for us, we needed to buy washing machine, dryer, refrigerator. You know, we had to buy everything. Everything in this house.
Cleaning company to come.
Cleaning, carpet cleaning, everything. So food, you know, like, you throw away a lot of food when you're moving. So you need cash when you move into a house, especially when you buy a house, because most likely you're buying something bigger than anything you've lived in before. So that's my last recommendation, is save some cash.
And that pretty much wraps it up right there, right?
I know it was a long video, y'all, but shout outs to y'all if y'all rocked with us through the whole process. We hope that this video was helpful, inspiring, and if it helped you, please share it. Subscribe to our channel. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions.
Signing out.
We signing out.
I'm CJ. This is Ruby. Until next time.